Hello, this is Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Today's video was an interview that I did with Lieutenant Jerry Holeman, who answered a lot of different questions that I and a lot of the freaks who watch my channel had. And he's a very cool guy, nice person, and I really appreciate him taking the time to let me interview him. All right, so without further ado, let's get started on that interview right now. I remember you went to the FBI for some training. Is that when you became a sergeant after that, or were you a sergeant before you went in? I know you're a lieutenant now, but
Yeah, it was after. So our department, you have to be a first sergeant or above to be nominated to go to the FBI National Academy. So it was shortly after I got promoted in July of 2016, I believe. So shortly after that, one of my former bosses nominated me, and I filled out the application. And it's actually a very thorough background investigation they do on you to make sure that you meet their requirements to go out there. But yeah, it was after I got promoted, and before all this happened, before I was accepted and had a date to go before the Abbey Libby murders in 2017.
oh, I see. So what kind of things did they teach you there, just in general?
So it's called the FBI National Academy, and it's a leadership academy put on by the FBI. And there was I think there was 225 other students in my class. I do one class a year. Actually, I'm sorry, they do multiple classes a year now. During COVID, they were breaking that up. But so, yeah, you get to pick your classes. They're all accredited through the University of Virginia. So I took a lot of investigative classes. I took a media relations class. And then most of it's geared around leadership, generational gaps, how to lead older people or younger people, things like that. And it's also fitness. You have a physical fitness test you do, and a lot of how to take care of yourself mentally and physically, a lot of those types of classes. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, did some of that training help in this investigation?
I think so. Absolutely. I think mostly maybe the media relations class um,
Yeah,
helped helped out a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
The investigative classes, um, not really. I think most of it just reiterated what we already knew and what we were already doing in those investigations. But it was definitely good learning experience.
I think it was February 13th, 2017. Abby and Libby were, unfortunately, they were killed. Um, and then the 14th, their bodies were found around noon. How long after that did you show up at the crime scene?
Yeah, I think it was 12/12 when I was notified. Um, I was at the the fire department, Delphi Fire Department, city building, the old one. So I was there within probably 5 minutes after we were notified.
And then when you went to the crime scene, was it undisturbed at that point? Or, because I could imagine at first people would have wanted to try to resuscitate or something.
No, it was undisturbed. No, I think the first person on the search party that saw them knew right away, so they did not get close to them. When I was there, all the search party members are already back coming up the hill, and there was a couple police officers that got there before me with the county and even state police, and they were already starting to put crime scene tape up around the area.
Okay. And then were they ever covered with leaves at all? I mean, people described it that they were just laying there with the branches, but were there ever leaves at one point on them?
It didn't appear to me that leaves were on them, maybe a few, but not like a large amount of leaves, just sticks, some
Okay.
debris.
Yeah, that must have been pretty shocking going to a crime scene. I mean, you especially since everybody just thought they were missing the night before, and to come upon that, what was that like? Just mentally?
Yeah, I think, as I've said before, I become compartmentalized being in the Marine Corps for 8 years and being a state trooper for a long time. So those types of scene don't bother me like they used to, or in the
Right.
same manner. It's more of my emotion wasn't, my emotion was anger. Like, how could somebody treat two teenage girls like this? I was angry that somebody could actually treat human beings like that. Um, so that's kind of the emotion that took control of me.
Yeah.
It was just upsetting you, and just you can't believe that somebody would treat two humans like animals and basically put them through
Right.
that.
Let's see. So Richard Allen said in his confession that he took the girls down the hill. The one where he described what he did, where he was over at his. Well, first of all, when he was when you heard that he was over at his parents' house, he said in Peru. Did that make you kind of go, whoa? Because you knew that Kegan Kline. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there because you knew that Kegan Kline. You guys were investigating that. Did that make you perk up a little bit when you heard that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
His mother's.
it definitely caused a thorough investigation to see if there was any connection, and still to this day, there's no connection between them. Um, but yeah, it was definitely something that we looked into very thoroughly.
Okay, and then when he took the girls down the hill, I was going to maybe show on Google Earth the spot, and then maybe we could. I don't know if you ever saw. I made an animation where I move around. Let me move. Let me show you on this screen over here. Hold on a second. Right. I think this one will work. Yeah. Let me just pull this one up. So right here, this is the animation that I made regarding the events. Like, those are the three girls
Hmm.
walking, and then at 126, they're right here at a bench. Then Richard Allen comes in, passes them, and then he keeps walking this way. Then those girls go over State Road 25. There goes Betsy Blair underneath the bridge, then drives by the Hoosier Hardware Store, parks, gets out of her car. There's no time for Richard Allen to have got past Betsy Blair. And then Betsy Blair goes to the bridge and then turns around and comes back and passes Abby and Libby, and then they go. I think Richard Allen. What do you get? Do you think Richard Allen went back a little bit into the woods? Like over back this way down the trail to watch to see what they were doing.
Uh, I don't know if I can speculate on that. I think that so far what you said is the evidence that we have is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and then Richard Allen has them go down the hill right here. Now I always thought it was back in this little corner here. You see what I'm saying? Like right by the shallow portion, but it was back in a corner that he was going to assault them, and then the white van drives by. I mean, it's a little bit hard to see on that image. Let me try to zoom in on this one. So right here, he takes them down the hill, and I always thought right back here in this little corner is where he intentionally or originally was going to try to assault them. Does that seem accurate, or do you think
Uh,
it was down here,
what the evidence indicates is probably just right down underneath the trestle.
just
That's
right here, huh?
Yeah, just down the hill. It goes right down there, and then there's underneath that trestle. He was probably going to attempt to sexual assault him there, and then
Mm-hmm.
when the van went by, he tried to move him.
Yeah. What was that? Was that a parrot? I heard something. That
My
was
CIO's computer notification. Leave it in there.
I was like, whoa, I didn't, that wasn't real. Was that real?
Uh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
right here, so I always look at this big tree right here. I always thought the crime scene was right back there based on where the tape was. Your GPS coordinates that were in one of the documents were over here, but it didn't seem to match. I don't know if you guys didn't want it right on the crime scene, the GPS coordinates. They were right here, but I had it right behind this tree that sort of overhangs, kind of back in here. Is that not right? Or
It's hard for me to tell about on that,
okay, so
but
just looking.
that's the general area.
So how quickly were you able to access Libby's phone, like literally log in and start looking at it?
I think once we preserved the crime scene and collected all the evidence, it was taken to our phone analyst down in Indy. So probably the next day they started on it.
You guys made a decision to put out the image that you retrieved from that video. I mean, that's amazing that you guys, first of all, you found the video that quickly, or were able to get it, especially on an iPhone. And then you put the image out to the public on the 15th, the very next day after their bodies were found. Was there any kind of strategy to that?
No, I think anytime in this investigation where you're looking for the public's help, if you have information that you believe can be helpful, you want to get it out as soon as possible. And that was the best image that we had. That was actually an enhanced photo. The phone, the video, the actual video was upside down and twisted,
Yeah.
so we were able to stabilize it and get that photo and get it out to the public as soon as possible.
Do you know how they were able to stabilize this video?
I don't. I know we have experts that do that, and I know they were able to stabilize it. And
Yeah.
I don't know how.
And you guys were able to get those 2 seconds that you released in 2019. Those are the only really 2 seconds of clearness that you could find, right, of him walking.
Yes, yes. So in the actual video, he's directly behind Abby on the bridge for a majority of it, and just for those couple seconds, the way the camera angle was or moved, we were able to get that portion of him.
Yeah, and I actually think that when we were, a long time ago, when we were looking into where things were, I think he was actually after, when you put out those 2 seconds, it was after this last platform, right? He was only about 60 feet from the end of the bridge, I think, maybe 57.
It's a fair statement. Yep.
Do you think after that image was put out in the public, that's when Richard Allen went, whoa? Because the very next day after you asked to talk to the person in that image, he came forward. Do you think that's what he did?
That's a fair assessment. I don't know what Richard Allen was thinking, and obviously he's the only one that knows and doesn't want to talk about it. So, but I think that would be a fair assessment.
Yeah, and I think what it shows is how important. I mean, I believe that's what he did, and I think Libby's video is even that much more important because if he hadn't come forward, do you think if he hadn't tipped himself in, this would ever be solved?
Uh, Potentially, I think eventually it would be, but I think that obviously finding that tip helped out greatly.
No, it's amazing. The thing is so Libby, the video that Libby took allowed, had the picture of Bridge Guy that all the witnesses said, "Oh yeah, that's the person we saw was Bridge Guy." So that's huge there.
Yes.
But then him coming forward, I think, is because that was put out also. So it's almost like without that video, man, he'd have to have committed another crime, and you guys find another bullet that matched.
Right. I would say Liberty is definitely a true hero. Uh, very honorable what she did, and yeah, um, without
Yeah.
the video, I don't think it ever would have been solved.
Why do you think the report written by Dan Doolin never made it in front of the right person
Uh,
early on?
yeah, I think we had a lot of people with great intentions helping. I think, in my opinion, maybe too many people. But how do you tell people you don't want their help trying to find murder of two young teenage girls?
Right.
I think we were. It was total chaos at first, and when we were able to get it managed and kind of controlled, it got a little bit better, and we got a process. But unfortunately, with things that we couldn't control, it got mislabeled, misfiled, never got to the right person, and until it did. And then once it did, we moved quickly and were able to make an arrest within weeks.
Yeah. So the Kathy Shank, her finding it's amazing. But what's also I think is important sometimes in investigation is like the more information people have, that something can pop into their mind, because she knew about the girls seeing somebody, right?
Yeah,
The 4 girls that
sure.
saw Richard Allen.
Yeah, she pretty much knew what we knew about all the witnesses that we had interviewed. She was filing them and making hard copies, putting them in this computer system. She was aware of everything. So yeah, when she did find it, she knew that we hadn't talked to the bridge guy yet, and
Yeah.
that tip basically says, "Hey, I'm bridge guy." So she, and she would do that a lot. She would do that with many tips. Say, "Hey, I don't know, have you guys followed up on this?" And majority of the time, we were able to look into it and be like, "Yeah, we did." Maybe the report hasn't been written yet. Maybe we have to reach out and give someone a gentle reminder to document the report or whatever. But there's others that we weren't couldn't find documentation, so we go back and document it. But that one, obviously, we knew we hadn't talked to Bridge Guy.
Yeah, and you guys had already determined that the person that the 3 girls, Rayleigh, Bree, and so forth. There's 4, but 3 witnesses that you used, and then also even Betsy Blair, because they all said that the person they saw was the person in Libby's video, right? So you already knew that if you had that person's name, you likely have Bridge Guy, right?
Yes, and Sarah Carball.
Yes,
Sarah Carball, Betsy Blair, and the 3, like you said, 4 girls, but one was very young. I can't remember how old she was. One of the sisters, but she was very young, so we didn't interview her. But the other 3 identified, the person they saw as the video or the picture from the video off of Liberty's phone as the man they saw on the bridge that day.
Yeah, and when so that's the thing about with Kathy Shank. It was years later she knew all these different things, but Dan Doolin wouldn't have been aware that 3 girls saw Bridge Guy at the time to make like, whoa, this is the same person that those 3 girls saw, right? He wouldn't have been able to know that.
Probably at that time, no, he might not have. Depending on what briefs he showed up to, we had briefs, daily briefings. But a lot of that was kept close to the Unified Commands vest. We weren't putting out every detail just because we were fear for leaks. And so, yeah, we kept a lot of that close to our vest. And so, yeah, it's high potential that he did not know.
Yeah. So what kind of things have you put into place, like procedures, to not have something like that happen again, where a tip of that magnitude, or even any tip really, gets sort of forgotten about, basically?
Sure. I think now, we've worked many major investigations since then. We try to keep it centralized and, one agency, and only use other agencies if they have resources that we don't. If we're going to assist, then we try to manage it, the tips and leads better. But no investigation that we've worked before or after this do we get even a tenth of the amount of tips that we got on this case.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the big thing.
everybody wants. Go ahead. Sorry.
We do have a tips and lead sheet that we come up with through the state police that we can organize that. But I think the most important thing is to keep a tight group. One person knows everything and kind of manages that through. And that's what we try to do. But when you get a lot of different departments, a lot of different agencies, it gets a little bit difficult to do. So
That actually makes a lot of sense, because you want somebody that's sort of running the ship that knows the whole story, everything's coming in. And you got to make, I mean, obviously you have to make sure that they see almost every tip, at least a small summary of it, right? Because Dan Doolin's tip, how did somebody know when Richard Allen came forward, that was important for some high level person to see,
right.
So that's kind of a hard way, it's hard to figure out how to actually, I guess, when you're at the highest level, do you really want to hear every single tip that comes in? So you have to have people that are smart enough below to
Yeah. Yeah, I think the state police, we promote people, sergeants and first sergeants, to control those investigations. And I was a DIC at the time, and I was controlling the state police's involvement, um, and assisted with the ISL, Steve Buckley, at the time, and he's since taken my spot. But yeah, so we have people in place now that we trust. Those guys, those are the ones that need to know everything. Above, we just need to know what you need, what resources, money, travel arrangements,
Right.
training that might help you accomplish your goals. And that's what and that's kind of what happened in this case. We were supported by our agency very, very well.
So you remember the three girls? They said that it looked like Bridge Guy, aka Richard Allen, was had his head down and he was looked like he was on a mission. And then Betsy Blair said it looked like he was waiting for somebody, but she wasn't that person. That Richard Allen was waiting for somebody. Do you think Richard Allen knew the girls were going to be there that day?
I don't think the evidence, none of the, excuse me, none of the evidence that we have supports that. Um, we do know that we believe that the girls were communicating with somebody else that they thought they may be meeting that day. But we don't have any evidence indicating that Richard Allen was planning on meeting those two girls that day.
So you have indications that the girls perhaps were going to meet somebody else there that day.
We believe that Anthony Schott's account was communicating with Liberty and some of her friends weeks up to this. So again, it's hard to does the evidence indicate that because of Snapchat and Kick and
Yeah.
Musically and all those apps? We know they're communicating, but we don't see the actual text of them. Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we have reasonable suspicion to believe that they may have thought that Anthony Schatz, that person, might be out there.
See, and isn't that that's the thing that always makes people just go, "Wow!" So it's possible had the person associated with Anthony Schatz shown up there, there could have been two nefarious actors there. Or is it possible? I mean, you got to ask if it's possible that some analog way that Richard Allen found out that they were going to be there, and that's connected to maybe the Dropbox or something that Kegan Kline was associated with. But it's just an analog form that you guys can't discover.
Right. Anything's possible, but we don't have any evidence indicating that.
Is there any other unknown person that you saw as a name out there during the investigation, but you were unable to track them after, on social media or anything like that?
No, I don't believe so. If I'm
Yeah,
tracking the question correctly.
yeah, it was because there was just a name that popped up, like a username, but you were never able to find who that person was, but they were communicating with the girls.
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Let's see. So, given the fact that Kegan Kline and Richard Allen have both been sentenced, can you say what you guys were searching for in the Wabash River related to Kegan Kline? If you can't, you can't. I mean,
Yeah, probably not yet.
Okay.
Wait until after all the appeals are squashed. But yeah, it's a good
All right.
question.
At trial, it sounded like investigators had to go back to the Hoosier Harvest store to get the video after Richard Allen said he drove a black Ford Focus, or however that turned out. Why did you have to go back to the Hoosier Harvest store to get the video? Wouldn't you just have the video collected? Maybe you do, and I misheard how somebody.
Yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding. Yeah, we had the video on hard drives. We had it. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
We went back and reviewed the video that we recovered from the Hoosier Harvest store, but we didn't go back to the store to get it.
Okay, I think that was just misreported then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, now the next question I had was regarding the headphones being plugged in and then somehow the plug was removed. I mean, it's astounding that people literally think that somebody in the middle of the night, without moving the phone, reached their hand underneath, plugged in the some headphones to see what was on there, and then later pulled it out. What do you think about that whole thing?
I think it's very unrealistic, and I think you described it perfectly. I mean, in order to plug them in, you're going to have to, I think, move the
Right.
phone a little bit. And when you move the phone, the screen light's going to come on. That's going to be reported. Um, and we knew that was one of the. Chris Cecil explained that he knew that was one of the options, but there just wasn't research done to prove that. And then obviously we knew that water and dirt in the port causes false readings, and that's what we believe happened. They went across the creek. They were like, dirty water. So we think it was a false reading.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what this right here. I
Yeah.
was actually looking up. It says yes, the cell phone data can show that it's plugged into a jack due to water damage, even if no physical jack is inserted, and this indication can later disappear as the water dries out, making it appear as if the jack was removed. This is because the phone's internal sensors detect moisture in the charging port. I mean, it's just it's out there, but it's always a huge like conspiracy for people. Like somebody came back in the middle of the night, you know.
Yeah. There's no evidence to indicate that. I think sometimes the truth is too boring for some people, so they want to
Yeah.
exaggerate and make up stories. But realistically, I think water in the ports was the reason why that was reported.
Well, I think it's pretty clear, especially since the jeans that Abby was wearing were wet. Don't. And another thing too, you hear these people that talk about how hard it is for one person to do all this, but doesn't a gun make it really kind of easy to? I mean, not easy, but like you have them undress at gunpoint, etc.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about controlling two teenage girls with a gun. If you're trying to control me and you with a gun, one of us may take off running. But younger kids aren't. I don't think would take that chance. And those two were such close friends; they weren't going to leave each other. I think that was obvious. So yeah, I think it's very easy to control two people with a gun.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't really going to ask about it, but the way that Abby's found was that she's dressed in Libby's clothes. My opinion is that she was allowed to or forced to dress Libby's clothing, then killed. Does that match the evidence at all? Or
That does. I don't know whether she was allowed to or forced to, but we do believe that she was murdered after she put the sweatshirt on. That's what the evidence indicates. How
yeah,
she got it on, we'll never know.
yeah. But it seems like again the way, like in that Frank's memorandum, the 82 bullet point, one single solitary man acting alone had to pull the arm and pull it through. It was most excruciatingly, in my opinion, ludicrous thing. So let me ask you something. What was your reaction when Kathy Shank's information got to you? Like you were probably sitting somewhere and all of a sudden a phone call and
Yeah, I remember exactly what I was doing. I live on a farm. I was on my tractor putting brush on a brush pile and burning it. And my phone vibrated, and it was Tony Liggett. And he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." So I shut the tractor off and started talking to him. And it was in the evening, six, I don't know, after 5:30 or six. I can't remember exactly what time. And I said, "Okay, well, send me the information on Mr. Allen, and I'll start doing some intelligence gathering on him and see where he lives, where he'd worked, where he's been." And so we did that, and then we met the next day and uh, did some more follow up investigations on him and found the video and what kind of, at this point, we already know what kind of car he has and things like that. So we started putting it all together. And at some point, we decided that we needed to go interview him. So, yeah.
it must have been just whoa. I mean, you must have just jumped off your tractor and I mean, almost felt like doing that anyways. I'm sure you had to finish
Well,
doing what you were doing.
the thing is, we've had a lot of these where we think it's the guy, and then we investigate it, and um, we don't come up with any probable cause. But this one, uh, we were pretty certain that we were on the right track.
And when you started looking into it, what was the moment that you knew that this is the guy?
I think during the first interview with Steve Mullen and Tony Liggett, when he was describing himself and not giving an alibi to where he was when the girls were killed, and that he was out there, um, I think that made my mind up, and that's not the only reason, because we already knew about all the
Right.
witnesses, and we found his car on the video and things like that. So I think in my mind, that's when I knew he just described himself as bridge guy. This is the guy.
Oh, it's amazing. He's like, well, blue jeans, dark blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hoodie and some sort of head covering. It's like, okay. I actually, every time I'd read what he wrote, I put this picture of him on the screen, bridge guy, and it's exactly the same thing. Do you guys ever figure out exactly, does he have a skull cap on underneath with a hoodie sort of bunched up behind him? It's kind of strange. I always thought it was a hoodie, but then I don't know if I think that anymore.
Yeah, I think we don't know for sure, but he said he had a head covering on and the sweatshirt. So exactly what kind, skull cap or what, I don't
Hmm.
know if we've ever
Well, there's
definitely
a
determined
there's a
that.
picture of when he's playing pool, and there's a skull cap that he's wearing that's brown, and it even sticks out slightly. And that one, man, it looks like that could be exactly what
Yeah,
he's
it could
wearing.
be, could be.
What did you make of when he was asked, "Are you bridge guy?" And he said, "No. If the girl took the picture, it's not me." I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he said a lot of things that uh, popped up on our radar that, you know, indicated that that was him. So,
Right. It's basically saying, "Well, yeah, it looks just like me, but I can't tell you it's me if the girl took the picture." It's just ridiculous. Oh yeah, remember a long time ago? I remember I asked you one time about a basketball hoop. Like there was some kind of thing that was maybe happened in jail with Richard Allen climbing up on. Was that a real story? Like he climbed up on a basketball hoop and like fell down or tried to jump on it or something. Did that
uh,
actually?
I briefly,
Yeah.
I briefly remember hearing something like that, but I don't know for sure where that happened at. And I think might have been when it was up at DOC, but
Hmm.
I don't recall the exact. Yeah.
Right. And everybody knows you're a tough guy and everything like that. But what's it like over the years, but having so many vicious comments made online? And it's something I'm familiar with myself. It's horrendous. But how have you dealt with that?
Right. Well, I'm not really a bully or a tough guy. I'm actually a softy. My wrestlers used to call me Jer Bear when I coached wrestling because
Yeah.
I tried to act mean, but I was
Right.
really nice and would bring them
Yeah.
food and treat them really good. But I know a lot of people accuse me of being mean during the interview to Mr. Allen, but I think I treat him with respect until I needed to be a little more aggressive. Um, we're used to being scrutinized over what we do and what we don't do. I think that the general public believes that we did the right thing and we got the right person, and none of that matters really. What people believe, what I think what really matters is the jury of Mr. Allen's peers believed beyond a reasonable doubt that we got the right guy. So that's the only thing that matters. But I get some indirect hate threat, death threats, and hate email and hate and people talk bad about me on podcast. And I'll just say, I'm going to try to take the high road. I said what I said and meant what I meant about not agreeing with the defense strategy, and they've said what they've said about me, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to agree to disagree. I think we're just both very passionate about what we do. Um, and I don't mind it. What I don't like is the photos being out there. The family being harassed, our families being harassed. Talk bad about me. I don't care. Um, I can take it. I got broad shoulders and thick skin, but leave the families alone. Leave our families alone. And
Okay. I think that's what I meant by tough, is like you're
yeah,
mentally tough. Um, so regarding that, do you think, see the investigation you did into Mitch Westerman and those guys, can you talk about that at all? Because I do want to ask one question if I could.
yeah, briefly, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that Mitch Westerman was really just the firewall to protect the two attorneys, or do you think it really was that he went in there and took pictures that were on a table? Because it sounds like he already had those images because he had the full um, Frank's memorandum, including the images prior to that. So why would he take pictures of pictures he already had? You know.
I can say we did a very thorough investigation, and we did not find any criminal nexus between the defense attorneys and Mr. Westerman. And he got charged for what he did. And then Mr. Baldwin always accuses me of wanting to arrest him, and no, I just wanted the person that got these photos and leaked them out be held accountable. And we did a thorough investigation, and we had no probable cause to believe that Mr. Baldwin did anything to violate any criminal statutes, or we would have pursued that.
Yeah. So I guess if they had a conversation in person saying, "Hey, can you get these images out there?" and those images are put out, I mean, you can't prove it, so then it's
Right.
like
Can't
not
prove it.
just theory.
Those are thoughts that we all have, but there's no evidence indicating that.
All right, let's see. Now this is randomly about Kegan Kline again. You remember when you guys were interviewing that huge document that came out that was like 198 pages? It was two investigators. They were interviewing Kegan Kline, and they seemed really interested in that somebody else was using a device. Are you guys still looking into possibility of that? Because remember how the voice was a little different, or the writing style was different, apparently.
Yeah. So no, we're not furthering the investigation on that. We have no evidence to prove that more than one person was acting as Anthony Schatz at that time. It was Kegan Kline, and he's been charged for that. And that's pretty much all I'll say about that.
Why do you think that there were the three, I guess they're investigators, Ferenczi, Click, and Murphy, were out there looking into something on their own on the side without really being in cahoots with other investigators?
Well, I think that's a misconception. We knew. I actually went down to Rushville with Kevin Murphy and interviewed Elvis Fields, so we knew they were keeping. Kevin Murphy was keeping us informed. I think it's a misconception that we did not thoroughly investigate the Odinism and the Rushville connection. We did. They were keeping us informed. We just were never able to establish any probable cause that they were involved. We couldn't even put them in Delphi. So it was a thorough investigation done on that part. And Kevin Murphy kept me informed daily on what they were doing.
Yeah, and you guys were never able to provide that nexus, nor was the defense, because there was those hearings where they were given the chance, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Odinist theory in that whole document, the Frank's memorandum, was the biggest sort of fuel to the fire of this hate against the prosecution. I mean, what do you make of all that? It seemed to work, whatever their attempt was.
Yeah, I really don't know what their intent was, but yeah, it definitely caused a lot of hate and discontent against us unduly. But yeah, I'm guessing their intent, my guess would be just to draw attention away from the facts that we had about their client, Mr. Allen.
And I'm sure I've been watching some of these interviews with the defense team, and they always seem to leave out a couple of the big things, like the actual timeline information, the witnesses and so forth. It's just the specific things they bring up. But I guess that's just what defense attorneys do. Have you been watching some of them?
I have not. No offense, but I don't usually watch podcasts or YouTubers. I
Come
didn't
on,
even
you've watched mine a million times, man.
I didn't even know they existed until this case started. And but no, I do have friends and family members that watch them, and sometimes they'll tell me or ask me things. And yeah, it seems to be a little bit unfair what they talk about,
Yeah.
but again, I'm taking the high road. I wish them all the best luck, and I'm going to move forward and keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's weird. I sort of felt like I was on an island when I remember that documentary on the CW network. I mean, I went through that little timeline thing where it's you lock him in, but everybody else is off talking about something else, And I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I spent a lot of time trying to put out the facts that are out there, and it seemed to work. A lot of people were like, "Oh my God, I see it now," but then what's more popular are the conspiracy theorists. Like I might have 300 people watching mine and 8,000 watching the conspiracies.
The truth is boring, Gray. That's what I said earlier. If you come down to just the truth and the facts and the evidence, it's kind of just a boring case. I mean, what makes it interesting is all the conspiracy theories, and they're just not true. It's the jury found him guilty, and the facts and the evidence was there, and
Yeah.
nobody likes boring. They want to make it more than it is, and it's just not.
Yeah. I mean, I would always say, you guys, I'm 100% certain based on this information that Richard Al, I mean, my own personal opinion that he is bridge guy and therefore the killer. And then you'd have these people say, Gray, it's innocent till proven guilty. And then now I say, well, he was proven guilty. And now they're going back doing the conspiracy still, it's really frustrating as a quote podcaster or
Right.
YouTuber.
And then there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that you're just not going to be able to, even though the jury convicted him or found him guilty. And, you know, unfortunately, there's always going to be those people that just can't believe the truth,
All right.
unfortunately.
All right. Well, I don't know if I have much more to ask here, but I
Okay.
appreciate you coming on,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Jerry Holeman. Is there any last thing you want to say, or?
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and good
All
luck.
right. We'll keep fighting the good fight out there.
Well, thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.
See you. All right. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you could hit that like button, leave a comment in the comment section and let me know what you thought was the most interesting part of the interview. And I would appreciate reading those and responding. So thank you again for watching. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.